Welcome back to This McCrazy Wife. Today I want to share two recipes with you. The first one is for hot Italian sausage sandwiches. So I'm going to start out by putting my Italian sausage in the bottom of my slow cooker. I like to get these sausages either at Sam's Club or Aldi. Both are really good. Then we're going to need some peppers. I happen to have orange and yellow on hand, but you can also use green or red. I have 2 onions, a can of tomato sauce, and a can of diced tomatoes with green chilies, the Rotel. That's going to give us our sauce for the sausages. And then seasonings, I keep it simple with just Italian seasoning and salt and pepper. And that's all that you need. If you want to take the time to brown your sausages, you certainly could. I did not want to take the time, nor did I want to heat up my kitchen. So I skipped that step, and honestly, we didn't even miss it. So I go ahead and I slice up my peppers, and then I slice up my onions. Now I do keep the slices pretty thick because some of my family do not like to eat the onions, some do not like to eat the peppers. So I like to slice them up nice and thick so that after it's all cooked, it's pretty easy to pick out whichever of those you didn't want on your sandwich. So now we've got our sausages in the bottom of the slow cooker. I'm going to add the can of tomato sauce on top and then add in my can of diced tomatoes with green chilies. Now, honestly, if I had a can of just green chilies, I probably would use that instead of the diced tomatoes, but the diced tomatoes are good, and either way, it's fine. Then I go ahead and add in my onions and my peppers. I do like to make sure that I get the onions all pulled apart so you have all the individual rings instead of like big chunks of onion. And this way they just all cook down really nicely. Then we're going to go ahead and sprinkle in our Italian seasoning, just however much you like, and then add in our salt and pepper. I've made this way a few times now, and we absolutely love it. It is so good and so much easier than having this all simmer on the stove, making my kitchen all hot for the summertime. So we're going to go ahead, put the lid on it, and then we're going to turn the crock pot on to low. And this cooked for about 8 hours. When it was finished cooking, I went ahead, I do check the internal temperature of the sausages just to make sure they were hot enough, and they were well beyond. This probably cooked for at least 8 hours, maybe longer than that even. So as you can see, that one started to fall apart. They were super tender. They were absolutely delicious. We served these on buns, and I made corn on the cob in the Instant Pot, which is my favorite way to make corn on the cob. And this was a fantastic dinner with a completely cool kitchen at the end of it. So the second recipe I want to share is one that maybe you don't think of as being a summer recipe, but it's for chili. And I actually made it in the Instant Pot. So again, there was no heating up the kitchen with my stove. I just threw it in the Instant Pot, and it was so quick and easy. So I had already browned my hamburger earlier that morning when it was still pretty cool in the house. So I had that in the refrigerator, pulled that out, and then I have 2 cans of tomato sauce. I have a can of kidney beans, a can of pinto beans, and then again, a can of Rotel. I use a lot of Rotel. I really love green chilies. But you can use whichever kind of beans you want. My son prefers the kidney beans. I prefer the pinto beans, and my husband and other son, they don't care. So we compromise and we do 1 can of each. So then we need salt and pepper, chili powder, ground cumin, one of my favorite chili seasonings. And then I decided to throw in some smoked paprika this time, and it was really, really good. So again, my ground beef was already browned, though you could brown it on the saute function of the Instant Pot if you wanted to. And then I drained and rinsed my 2 cans of beans. Then I'm going to go ahead and pour in a can of the Rotel. I do not drain that because I do want the juices from that. And then we're going to add in both cans of the tomato sauce. Now I did add in a little bit of water because I wanted to make sure the Instant Pot would come to pressure with no problem, make sure it had plenty of liquid and it wouldn't burn to the bottom. So I just put some water in those tomato sauce cans and kind of got all that extra tomato sauce out of it and then poured it in. It was probably about 3/4 of a can of tomato, or I'm sorry, 3/4 of the tomato sauce can filled with water. And then I just stirred that in. And then I'm going to go ahead and just add in my seasonings. Now, I don't measure the seasonings here because obviously seasonings are based on your taste and what you and your family like. So I do a good amount of chili powder, decent amount of the cumin, and then some of that smoked paprika, and then salt and pepper. And you can always, once it's cooked, if you need to add some more salt and pepper, obviously you can go ahead and do that. So I go ahead and just give it a good stir and then put the lid on. Of course, turn your valve to sealing. And then I set the timer for 10 minutes and it cooked. Now I was going to allow a 10-minute natural release, but I got impatient and I stopped it at 9 minutes. Don't think that really mattered for 1 minute. But at 9 minutes, I went ahead and gave a quick release to let it release the rest of the steam. Steamed up my camera, as you can see. But this chili was fantastic. It literally tasted like it had been simmering on the stove for an hour, but instead it was just done in the Instant Pot, and it made it perfect for a summer dinner. So if you like your chili to be a little bit thicker, you can always add in some sort of a cornstarch slurry or something if you want to thicken it up. But this was the perfect thickness for us. We had ours paired with naan and enjoyed this dinner so much. So I hope you'll give both of these recipes a try. I hope you're having a wonderful summer, and thanks again for watching This McCrazy Wife.